What's going on, y'all? KMBest here. Today, I'm joined by Cougarrr, the winner of Golden Gauntlet World Championship Qualifier 3, to talk about the list that did it so you can take it onto ladder and succeed just as powerfully. Welcome, Cougarrr. Congratulations on your victory at Golden Gauntlet World Championship Qualifier number 3. I was rooting for you. I know I'm not necessarily supposed to be doing such a thing as a commentator, and I kept it out of my commentary, but as someone who wanted to believe in this list and during your prep process was like, I want you to do well with this list so I can believe in this list, it feels very nice that I get to be able to do this.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, like you said, when I first sent this into the high elo chat, you were the the one person, the sole believer. You're like, I like the look of this.
I do.
Yeah, so it was a little confidence boost in, locking it in and actually keeping it because I believe I sent it maybe the day before or the morning of before the decks were due. So it was nice to see.
Yeah, so tell me if I'm off base about why I liked it, though. Because the reason I was into this was because I felt like all the Invisible Woman decks had gone away from being a Mercury Mobius deck. They'd just done completely other things, and I get that. It makes perfect sense. But if people are targeting Invisible Woman decks, that's going to hit them even if you aren't going to be being a Prodigy deck. Even if you're playing Thing First Steps, Supergiant is really good against you. So this is the Mercury Mobius deck that is good against Supergiant. That's like the baseline thing that appealed to me about it.
Yeah, I think we'll get on about it as we go into the video, but I like it kind of stumbled into being good against Supergiant with some of the changes I made as I was tinkering on ladder. I didn't start out with that aim. I actually started out kind of from where the Iris deck was, the version that was running the Batroc, Sam Wilson,
Yeah.
Craven, all that stuff. And then as I was playing, I'm like, wow, my Hellion, wow, my Think First Steps, they're really bad in Supergiant. You know what I mean? So I ended up needing to change the 5 drops around and, make some specific meta calls.
Yeah, because like when I was messing around with Zombie Scarlet Witch, it was in that same basic shell, the Mercury Mobius thing. And I very quickly
Mhm.
realized, like, I can't play Thing First Steps in here anymore. It has to go back to Cannonball. And that is
Yeah.
sort of what leads you to this process, where it's like, what you did was sort of an evolution of that, where it's like, okay, well, I can't play Zombie Scarlet Witch either. So let's just go lean into the Cannonball stuff and get an entirely different point package here.
Yeah, and I've always been a bit of a Hydra Stomper truther since it came out. Like some of you may remember, I had the version I always ran the move afflict list, the
Yeah.
high Evo version. And when Stomper came out, I merged the Stomper points package with that, and I played a lot of it. So even like with the Iris deck, when she first sent that, I was like, wow, this is cool. And one of the first things I did, I believe she had Madam Web and maybe another 3 cost. I was like, nope, get me Silk and my Hydra Stomper. So I'm very happy that it ended up succeeding as well as it did.
Yeah, when you put this deck together, what was the ethos then? Because my thought process was the ethos was the Supergiant stuff, but if you backed into that, was this just, a comfort pick that worked out? What was your thought process going into it beyond just like, I want to play a good mid-range deck and really hope I don't hit Hella and Cerebro 3 or Cerebro 2? Well, any Cerebro deck really.
Yeah, I was praying. I had my fingers crossed, but basically, so like I just said, I've been playing, Hydra Stomper, Sam Wilson, this kind of points package since it came out, kind of off and on. And then when Iris, re-put it on the map, I was playing a lot of it, so it did feel comfortable for me. And just going off my past Golden Gauntlet tournament experiences, I believe I've participated in 2 or 3 of them, and I think I went like 2 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and 2. So I never made it past round 5, and I was always trying to do something different. Like I tried bringing the Move War Machine Legion deck. I tried bringing that mid range move deck that I believe you featured on the channel before. Stuff like that where it was a lot of thinking. I wasn't 100% confident if it was the right version of the shell or if it had the right matchups. So I figured, I'd try less fancy things and go with something that I know very well and that I can specifically tech out to what I expect.
Yeah, I do think that you did a really good job of just making sure you weren't dead to Invisible Woman first steps. Even if you did expect it to sort of fall off as it ran into the Supergiant stuff, Cosmic Ghost Rider is just like a good enough answer. Like Cosmic Ghost Rider and Cannonball was the thing that stuck out to me as well when I was messing around with similar Mercury Mobius shells, was like, you can use Cannonball just to mess up their lane. Like their Invisible Woman first steps Jocasta lane, you could just mess that up with Cannonball. So both of your 5 drops
Mhm.
have this utility into IWFS. You are able to go point for point with the Sauron Supergiant deck, and even more so with the Darkhawk Supergiant deck, probably even more of a favored matchup for you. What are
Mhm.
you afraid of when you see this deck? Talk to me a little bit about, the fear of Cerebro, the fear of Hela, that kind of stuff.
So yeah, those combo decks where we don't have any answers to are definitely very scary. Like Hella, really the only good tech card would be a Stardust, or I considered running a Cosmo in this shell, but what I found with Cosmo was it kind of protected your opponent's cards. They could hide stuff from Cosmic Ghost Rider or Cannonball, so it kind of had some anti-synergy. So, yeah, we're not able to pack the answers for Hela. Cerebro, they hold all their points till the final turn. We're not running Eliath. We're not running Echo. So some of those where we just don't have answers, we'd kind of be dead in the water, and I'd have to really, think about how am I going to snap, how am I going to retreat, and how am I going to make the most out of the unfavored matchup. Um, a couple of other decks I was a little bit worried about was Nimrod. I didn't expect to see much of it though. And then a couple shaky matchups would be Destroy and V Hand. I was a little worried about them both, which I managed to dodge the Destroy. Killmonger's quite good into this deck, and I was able to beat the one V Hand I ran into, although it was a very close match.
So generally, your concerns with a deck like this are basically any kind of deck that can do more points than you that you don't have tools for. So you have tools for move, you have
Yeah.
tools for Mr. Negative, you've got Mercury and Mobius. How much would you say stuff like being able to unaccountably randomly blow up the best thing in on their board, or Juggernaut or Cosmic Ghost Rider, like how much ground do those cover? Because I can imagine against like V Hand and Destroy, that combination of cards makes me feel like the matchup isn't that bad. Against Hela, that combination of cards does basically nothing. Against Cerebro,
Mhm.
that combination of cards does basically nothing. So like in a sort of, not even like a tier list, because I think the tiers are pretty clear, but like how much
Mhm.
more scared of like Cerebro 2 are you than of like the hand?
Oh, so much more. The entire tournament, I was just absolutely praying I didn't see Cerebro 2. After the polls came out of what decks people brought and I saw its popularity, I was like, that could be the one matchup on this list where like I'm really just kind of dead in the water too. I need to have a miracle, get lucky with locations, something along those lines. So I was very fortunate to Q dodge it. But yeah, like you said, V Hand and Destroy. I don't think they're like extremely unfavored. I think you might be at a slight disadvantage, but there's still plenty of game in those matchups.
Moving on to the card by card breakdown, we're going to start with Batroc the Leaper, who I don't know if he's the best Series 4 release card of all time, but I think he probably is. I can't think of a better one, is what I'll say. I mean, this guy can get up to 110 on his own, rarely, but it can happen, and also contributes power to your Craven while doing so, to your Hydra Stomper while doing so. How crucial is this card? How much of a linchpin to this deck is Batroc the Leaper? Would you bother playing it if he didn't exist?
No, flat out no. This guy made the archetype a thing. I can't think of all the Series 4 cards off the top of my head, but he'd have to be, close to number one if he isn't. Like you said, he's amazing. He multiplies your moves for Hydra Stomper. He gets extra procs on Craven when you're moving the shield around. And then he's just very, very flexible late in the game. You don't have to move him into the Craven location. A lot of times they'll be scared. They're like, okay, if you do the right curve, a lot of the times the shield will end up where Craven is. So a lot of people will just throw that location. Oh, Craven, Batroc are there. So he's very nice. You could leave him in Sam, or you could even move him somewhere else.
One of the easiest ways to get me to like a deck list is to put Electra in the deck list. I am not necessarily an Electra truther, but I think she's just quite solid as a just generic one drop. That said, this is not a required card. This is a generic one drop, yes? So can you walk me through Electra versus Hydra Bob, for example?
I think Electra is a little more specific for this tournament. I kind of took notes from Fox's winning deck where
Yep.
he brought the Electra and the Invisible Woman for Steps meta. So I kind of did a similar thing here and figured, okay, that can be an additional out for my thing for Steps matchup, but it also would help me into V hand, or I could throw Prio and gamble a 50-50 against a destroy deck trying to hit the Deadpool. She's just solid. Super giant decks, they all play Hydra Bob. Some play the Black Cat and all that. She just plays for a 1/6. You're so happy for a 1/6. And with this list, you're very often floating just one energy. Like say on turn 3, you played Sam on turn 2. On turn 3, you have a 2+1. And it's stuff like that. So you need to get your Mobius down on turn 4. You play a 3+1. So she's just very flexible and just represents good stats.
Yeah, I have been an Electra believer for a few months now, and she has not let me down yet. There are just enough good one drops that you're just happy to play her. But specifically the call out to Fox's deck, because I do think this deck is reminiscent, right? It's a deck that is already doing something that is fairly powerful. And then if you run into Invisible Woman first steps, you have the Electra for their Sunspot or for just being like a 1/6 or a 1/7. And this is also important, you have the Cannonball, just like that deck, to like randomly jack up their ability to prodigy their stuff and like scale beyond you. And so I think both
Yeah.
of these cards are like things that we saw in Fox's deck in the last Invisible Woman First Steps meta, that like it makes a lot of sense that you looked at that and ended up there.
Yeah, I did take inspiration there. Another little piece of Electra tech is in combination with Cosmic Ghost Rider, she could destroy one of the early plays in the front lane and pull a good target, in front. So that was, I think it came up once or twice. Another good hit that I don't think I got to abuse, but a lot of move decks play Aranya. She's just great. Take out the
Yeah.
Aranya.
Speaking of move decks, Mercury just shuts that down entirely. I'm continually impressed with just how good this card is, because even though move has not been a major part of the metagame, did you play against any move decks at all in the tournament?
I did. I played against Sizer in my top 16 match, and then right after that, I played Ava in my top 8 match. So I played
So
against both
Mercury
Big
was
Move
it,
and Bounce.
and Mercury was presumably your best card in those matchups.
Oh yeah, yeah, she
Like,
was absolutely phenomenal. It wasn't a free win by any means. I believe Ava had me down to my last 3 cubes, but without Mercury, like I had one play where Ava had Cosmic Ghost Rider in her move deck, so I needed to be wary of that not hitting my Mercury. And I had a play where I was able to keep a shield where it was, move a Mercury behind it into the 3rd location, and then block the Heimdall.
yeah.
So she was absolutely crucial.
What I'm continually impressed with is her ability to just make it into decks because she's a 2/2 that moves. Like, is she Jeff? No, but she's close enough to Jeff, and she's also a tech card. And that's the thing
Yeah.
that makes me like feel so good about her. In this deck, she has that ability. Like in some of the thing first steps builds, you wanted her because of that kind of stuff. In other sort of like
Mhm.
Elsa E type builds, you wanted her because she can move. In this deck, you have move synergies, right? You have Miles Morales, you have Craven. But what I really want to ask about is the big knock on this deck among high elo players is, why would you not just play big move if you're gonna lose to your opponent's Mercury? So how worried are you that if this deck gets more popular, you're gonna be playing a lot of Mercury based mirrors that make neither of you do anything?
I definitely played some of those last night. I went live and I was playing not a ton of my deck, but a fair amount. And there was one particular game against Nick Folian where I Mercuried his Sam shield, and then he played Sam. And then the following turn on 3, I played Sam, and he Mercuried my shield. So it does just kind of create a little board lock and a lot of limping from both ends. It can get a little
Yeah.
inbred that way.
That was always the knock on this in previous metagames. Like, the reason I liked when you brought it up in this metagame is because we just left the metagame where everyone was playing Mercury Mobius. And the knock on this deck was like, why would you play the Mercury Mobius deck that loses to the other Mercury decks? But now there kind of aren't a lot of those. And I guess that's like the worry is that this brings them back. And suddenly it ushers in a bunch of like, because like, I don't know if this deck has a reasonable matchup into like the Mercury Mobius Mysterio Gwenpool deck. I feel like you probably just end up on the downside of that if people start playing that again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
no,
like,
I definitely agree.
did you like Trojan horse us back into a Mercury Mobius meta? Is what I'm asking.
I'm maybe unintentionally. I was definitely worried about seeing Mercury. I thought there'd be more in this tournament. I thought more people would bring move, but I believe just the fear of her after the last meta we were in was still kind of lingering, and a lot of people chose to shy away from the move decks.
I think you basically exactly nailed it in terms of like when to play this deck. Because part of me thinks like if this happens a week from today or like a week before today, if it happens a week early, people haven't figured out the Supergiant stuff yet. And if it happens a week late, there are going to be more Mercuries. And so it's like you hit it right at the right time. You crushed it.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm.
Do you have anything you want to say to the multitudes of people who were hating on Sam Wilson? Anything you want to say about the season pass card that got nerfed so many times that it's still by far, in my opinion, the single card you want to see in your opening hand the most when you play this deck?
He's just the absolute goat. I mean, we've seen him meta in and meta out. He's just been ever present. Has so many hooks, synergy wise. He just plays for what is it, a 2-8 or 2-6, whatever the heck it is. If you play him on curve, he's just great.
I can't overstate how much better this deck feels when it has him on 2 versus literally every other thing that you could possibly be doing. Like,
oh, most definitely. Like if you know you have relevant tech in the matchup and you see this guy in Craven or this guy in Batroc, it's I mean borderline a snap. If you see all three, it's almost definitely a snap.
yeah, like the only times you're not snapping is when you're like, it's Cerebro 2 or whatever. Like basically everything else, you're just like, this is a normal deck. I'm just favored. Like this guy is so ridiculously like the deck. He, more than any other card in here, is the reason you can play this. And we've talked about how important Batroc is. It's important because of Sam.
Yes. Yeah, he's the linchpin card.
So Craven is a little bit more awkward because he works with like your Silk and other move cards, but you really just want him to be Sam payoff, right? Like that's your plan A, and your plan B is like, I guess I figure it out.
I think Silk is pretty solidly plan B, and then plan C is like I'm gonna move my Mercury and Batroc will follow, and we'll figure out. Hopefully, I draw one of the other two later. I think I'm a lot higher on. We'll talk about her. Yeah, we'll talk about her next. But Craven, he's the biggest guy in the deck. He scales so well. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. What Craven feels like is like you have Batroc, you have Sam Wilson. Craven is like closer to Batroc than Sam Wilson. But when you have one of the other ones, he just like ends up being like a 2-9 or a 2-11. And you're just like, I'm very interested in having that card. Thank you very much.
Yeah, or higher, God forbid you got Sam Wilson, Batroc, and Silk all out there on the board.
Yeah.
He can get stupidly huge.
The fact that he is a force multiplier with your best draws, because it's like with Batroc, it's +4 every time you move the Sam shield into there. So it goes +4 on Craven, +6 total if you count the Batroc. And then you move the Sam shield back. Batroc gets +2. Sam Wilson gets it. And it's just like you're constantly stacking buffs that are like a little bit bigger than anything else in that vein can do. Like a Kitty Pryde would kill to be able to go like +6/+4. Love to do
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, it's crazy scaling when it gets rolling.
All right, you're higher on Silk than I am. I will note, I think people overstate my distaste for Silk. I do hate her, but I've always been of the opinion that if you're going to play this deck and you are going to have the Craven Batroc Sam Wilson thing in it, you need to have bad Sam Wilson. And even though she is bad Sam Wilson, she is absolutely required. That's not even getting into Hydra Stomper. Just, if you're
Yeah,
going to do this, you need a second. You can't just have Sam Wilson as your enabler. Even though she's so much worse, she is crucial to the deck.
yeah, 100%. And there were plenty of matchups that came down to, is Silk gonna go into the location for me or the location for them? And I won some throughout the tournament and I lost some. But there's a lot of skill expression, in my opinion, found with this card in specific. Like a lot of the other cards, it's easy. Okay, you play Sam, you play Craven, you move the shield back and forth. But Silk, you really have to think, how is she going to move? How can I end up clogging myself? Where do I think my opponent will play? Like, are they going to bounce the Silk? If they have Prio, then I should not play on her now. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of stuff you could do to absolutely maximize the move procs you get, because each one is, every other Silk move could be a Craven buff. Every single Silk move is a Stomper buff. Like, she just represents a lot of stats and is a solid black backup plan.
I liked Hydra Stomper enough to get a variant for him. So I will say that much. He just sort of like, when you're doing stuff in this deck, he's like a 314. And that's just sort of obviously a really stupid number to get to. What would you say he is on average when you're not like super beast moding? Because I feel like that number is
Oh,
still respectable.
I feel like on average he's like say you just do the a Mercury Batroc move, he's a 3-4, and then say you jug something or you cannonball something, the Batroc moves again. So he's like a 3-5 is kind of the floor, which is just okay stats. But like you said, when you get rolling, you just get rolling absolutely downhill. It's a snowball. The Stomper gets huge, and he's 3 cost, which is pretty flexible to weave in on turn 5 or on turn 6.
Yeah, that's what sticks out about this deck the most to me is of any of these sort of Mercury Mobius decks. This is the one that is best equipped to deal with Supergiant, despite the fact that Enchantress will hit a Hydra Stomper, because
Mhm.
it's just got so many guys that say like I'm a 210 or I'm a 314 or whatever, right? Like it's
Yeah,
just got so many guys that are just like, oh, well, I mean, it's cool that you played a Red Skull that has 14 power for 5. Mine just costs way less.
yeah. That was a lot of the power, and additionally, with him costing a lot less, and with all the other guys being in your hands with moving, it's very flexible as to where you want to actually place your points. Do you want to stack? Do you want to spread and go for all three? It's all up in your hands.
I've been a bit of a Mobius truther. I mean, we all know how I feel about Mobius Mercury decks. I love this stuff, right? I just feel like between the two of them, it just covers so much of what the meta is able to do. Is there a world where you'd ever consider cutting it? Like, let's say there was a card that was to Cerebro what Mobius is to like Mr. Negative. Would you play that
Mm.
card instead? Do you think that matchup is more important? Or would you rather just keep Mobius as your sort of like, I don't know exactly what you're doing to try to beat me, but a lot of things try to cheat energy, and I don't want to deal with any of them.
That's a tough question. I don't know. I feel like the only really bad matchup would be Cerebro, and if you're doing this on ladder, just retreat. I don't think it'd be worth sacrificing the whole card slot in your deck, because like you said, Mobius, he just hits so much, and he
Yeah.
has so many favorable locations for him where you could just snap and it's totally one-sided. Or a lot of the Suji decks were playing the Iron Patriot. Okay, you played that, sure you're gonna win it. You don't get the discount anyways. He's just great. At 3-4, I mean, it feels a little bit criminal sometimes. He's just kind of an auto include.
Yeah, like I don't think there's a good defense for this guy being 3-4. It's just like, all right, I get it, but he does so much already. Like what's notable about him is his breadth. He just like randomly is a snap condition in like, I don't know, 15% of games and turns off
Oh
your
yeah,
opponent's snap condition additionally a significant chunk too.
Oh yeah, I had Elysium games in the tournament. I had Raft games, just
Yeah.
anything like that. Solid, solid guy.
Yeah, as these decks have lost Stardust, because it used to be, I think, a Mercury Mobius Stardust like core, right? Like that used to be the thing. And what really
Yeah,
stuck out about that is between all three of those, you basically had answers to any kind of bad location RNG built into the deck. You had a bunch of
yeah.
ways to make all of those things one-sided. Even when you look at Mercury, right? Like, what is that doing to fix bad location RNG? It's winning a Sanctum Sanctorum, right? And so
Mhm.
that dynamic still exists here, where there are just more locations that are good for you than there are that are good for them. And he's a big part of it.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that you're a move synergy deck. There, we all know there are plenty of locations that'll move your cards for you.
This guy is like just kind of famously a messed up card. Where are you at on Juggernaut? Do you think 4/5 is where he's supposed to stay? Because I don't really think this is like a great Juggernaut deck. It's a little clunky. It would have definitely preferred, I think, playing the 3/3 version, because I have dreams in my head of being
Mhm.
like, I'm going to play this in a Hydra Stomper, and that's insanely powerful on the final turn of the game. But I mean, this guy's still a little jacked up, right?
Oh yeah, this guy's so messed up. I've thought for the longest time that he's just 3 cost Goliath, like old Goliath, delete your card. It's just jacked up. And like you said, it is a little clunky with him being a 4 cost, but even if they wanted to like nerf him and make him worse, what are you gonna do? Put him at 5? Okay, we cut Cosmic Ghost Rider. He's still great here. He's probably even better because he got bigger stats. And now we can include a Stardust or Super Giant or whatever the heck of our own in at that 4 class slot. So I mean he's just the GOAT. He wins lanes. He synergizes with Batroc and Craven. It's awesome.
Yeah, my pitch for all of him has always been 5/8. That's what I think he should be, because it's like, look, if you're going to play a card that says win a lane, at least pay 5 for it, because ones are
I,
terrible mostly.
I
Like,
think it'd unironically be a buff for this list specifically.
yeah, I once you mentioned that you just swap in a Stardust, I was like, oh, that's bad. Like, that's
Yeah,
like, oh, that's a bad outcome.
that is.
People might not know this about you. I consider you the foremost Miles Morales fan in Marvel Snap. Like, this is like, I don't know if you even have noticed this about you. I'm not sure, but when, like, you talk about the big innovation in the Sam Wilson deck with the High Evo stuff was also having
Mhm.
Miles Morales. So you basically always have a bunch of cheap garbage to play on the final turn of the game.
Oh yeah.
Like, genuinely, what is it that everyone else is missing about this guy that you keep finding ways to do well with him? And I guess follow up, do you think other people that play this card are being too greedy and waiting too long to play him?
I think yeah, you caught on, and I do know this about myself. I'm a big Miles truther. I remember we did one. I think we did one episode for the Pixel Alliance podcast, and we were ranking the best cards to each slot. And I tried shooing in this guy at number 10, which was crazy. That was with the old Shang and all the broken forecasts. But but yeah, he's good. Like you play Hood and you have to remove the downside for the 1/6. Miles just is a 1/6 because you're only playing him in decks where you're doing what you want to do. And the beauty of it is he's so flexible. You could weave him in, like I said, that you have a lot of 3+1 on turn 4, 2+1 on turn 3, stuff like that. You have a lot of 5+1 on 6, and it's just good to be able to pair that with some flexible stats that you get to distribute late into the game, or say there's a special location that you're trying to compete for, like winner here, turn 4 draws 2 cards. You could play a 1/6 there. He's just good. He's very flexible. He's one of my favorite cards.
I want to dial into the second thing that I asked, though, because when I play this guy, a lot of the time I'm like, I don't really want to play him before I know where I'm going to need him. Like,
Yeah.
I get greedy with this guy, and I think that could be a bad thing. And I kind of just wanted to run that by you as you're sort of like the premier Miles thing. Is that like a legit thing that'll cost you? Are you just supposed to be like, when you play this deck, play him when you got him?
I think it's a bit of a balance, and it kind of depends on how your draw is going. Like if you have an Electra in your deck still and it's turn 4 and you have the extra energy to run out of Miles, it's probably worth it to run it out and then bank on drawing that Electra to have a 5+1 on turn 6. So there is a fair amount of wanting to run them out early, but also like say you have the Electra in hand early, you have the Miles. I find myself often saving Miles to be the last card I play.
I've been really impressed with sort of Cannonball's flexibility in this list. I think a lot of people tunnel vision on like, I'm Mercury Cannonballing on 6, but you can Mercury Cannonball on 5 and then just go win the other lanes with points if you have to. You can disrupt things like your opponent's Invisible Woman first steps by doing that. Like that kind of stuff. For the record, if you're playing against this deck, whatever you do not play your Invisible Woman first steps or your Jocasta or whatever. Don't put it in the lane they already have Mercury in. Make them move the Mercury because otherwise it is
100%.
a free roll turn 5 Cannonball.
100%. Yeah, this guy, like you said, he's super flexible. Playing him out on turn 5 lets you use Juggernaut on the final turn.
Yeah.
I found myself very often having to play out an on-curve Juggernaut or an on-curve Cannonball just because you do come into some awkward draws when you're not seeing your early scalers. And like we talked about earlier, when you do that, he still has synergy with the Craven and with the Batroc. So he kind of plays like if you get one of those two procs, he kind of plays like he was never nerfed. He plays for 5/8.
I was pretty impressed with Cosmic Ghost Rider just conceptually in the deck, in the sense of like it's sort of like if you had a tech card for Cerebro 2, but for Invisible Woman first steps, right? Where it's just like without this, we don't win that matchup when they combo us. We just absolutely die. We have nothing for it because we don't really have like, Spider-Man and Stegoron to disrupt those lanes the way a Scream deck might. So it's got to get a 1-card solution to that because we don't have the room to put the rest of that stuff in. How did you feel about Cosmic Ghost Rider's performance in that context? And then also remove that context. How was it just as a card?
In the Invisible Woman first steps context, he's absolutely a shutdown card. Like I feel like without him, we'd have maybe a slightly favored matchup. We still have Juggernaut and Cannonball and Electra, but with this guy, I don't think I've lost to an Invisible Woman first steps gamer on this list. You're just so overwhelmingly favored. And then, in addition, he does have some other matchups that he impressed me with throughout the tournament. Like I believe the discard match on stream, I hit the guy's Morbius like 2 or 3 times with my Cosmic Ghost Rider. I had a game against Ava where I was able to hit the Human Torch and the Dagger with Cosmic Ghost Rider. Just get rid of the 2 points packages.
Gross.
It was, and even against Move, there's Madam Webs, there's Sparkies, there's Aranyas. There's Mercury's against you, which I believe that was relevant in one of my matchups. He's just good. A lot of V-Hand decks, if they're doing V-Hand, Frigga, Bastion, they're playing it out early, often in the front location. He's an out there. He's just overall pretty good, and even when he isn't, like your 5/7 is just fine.
All right, y'all. We're coming close to the end here, but we have enough time to get some final advice from Cougarrr. Cougarrr, if someone is picking up this deck cold and wants to play it on ladder, what is your advice to them, both in terms of play patterns, potential card swaps, metagame issues to watch out for? Just run me through, I guess we'll do them in order. Play pattern advice for someone who's never played this deck. What is it that you think they might not be aware of in terms of the power here? What are their good hands? What are their bad hands?
Good hand, any hand with Sam Wilson and either Batroc or Craven. If you have both, it's like, unless it's a bad matchup, it's almost just an auto snap. They're so strong together. So yeah, that's a lot of your good draws. You get rolling downhill early, but some play pattern tips could be like you occasionally have a game where you draw Craven turn 2 and then Sam on turn 3. And I find in that specific one, it's better to stack the Sam and the Craven to maximize the amount of buffs you get per move on the shield. So there's some small things like that to think about as well. And then, like I mentioned a little bit when we were talking about Cannonball and Juggernaut, don't be afraid to sometimes you just got to run those guys out early. They could still disrupt even if it's not on the last turn.
That one comes up a lot when you play this deck, because the
Oh
play
yeah,
pattern for both of them is greed them. And if you do that in this deck, you just are going to be skipping like 3 energy on turn 5 or something if you're greeting these cards.
100%.
So what about future meta games to watch out for? What is it that this deck really doesn't want to see that people watching this video maybe in 2 weeks can like look at the meta game in 2 weeks and be like, oh, this is or is not something Cougarrr said we should watch out for in the future?
I think definitely Mercury decks are the Achilles heel here. If that starts popping up a lot, suddenly you gotta look at, okay, can I fit in a Red Guardian or a Rogue? And that's a tough ask. We're only running 2 3 drops. One of them's a big stat stick, and the other one's Mobius. So it's really hard to cut that guy. So you might have to make some concessions if that change does happen. But besides that, I don't really think there's too many bad matchups for you unless you're seeing a lot of, like we talked about earlier, the Hela, the Nimrod. But I find in a lot of those matchups, I'll just leave for one.
And lastly, any card swaps you might make personally if you're looking to take this list on ladder? You mentioned Electro was pretty metagamed for the tournament specifically.
Yeah, I think this deck was metagamed for, like you kind of mentioned, the winners bracket, what we were going to see at the end. So Electra, Cosmic Ghost Rider, those two are probably your biggest flex spots here. I do think Electra is good to have another 1 drop for, so you do like a Hydra Bob, possibly. Just a lot easier to play, good stats, synergizes, or even that could be the spot to where if you need a Red Guardian or something in here, I might look to cut the Electra and fit an extra 3 cost in. And then as for Cosmic Ghost Rider, this list is kind of historically always ran the Hellion. Hellion's just really strong, but in our super giant meta that we're in currently, I find it to just be kind of nullified. So later when that passes, you could look to put him in, but even a surprise card like Legion or Enchantress or Lady Deathstrike, kind of anything with some cube equity there would serve you well.
I think that the more, like, I think this is another way in which you benefited from the Supergiant thing, where it's like, the more you are actually a Hellion deck, the more you start asking, like, why should I not also be a Human Torch deck? Why should I not also be a Dagger deck? And the fact that Hellion is so mid right now is a big point in this deck's favor, because it takes the, like, big move deck out of being direct competition for it. And I think that's, like, a really subtle but important metagame positioning thing that happened here for you.
Yeah, it definitely was with all the super giant around. It probably cut out some of those other Hellion gamers that were around.
Well, yeah, and it also like allowed you to reasonably cut Hellion and sort of stop asking the question of should I be a different deck, and start asking
Oh
the question of
yeah,
how do I like I get to do this in my deck. I get the pleasure of playing Cosmic Ghost Rider, right?
yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it definitely super giant 100% pushed me to cut the Hellion.
And that's like a genuinely like really clever little bit. Because again, a lot of the critique of this deck in high elo circles is you would just rather be the other move deck. It just does this, but does more stuff. And that becomes more not true the more Hellion is in a card. And I think that that's
Yeah,
like a really, like, I didn't even really grasp it before we had a 40-minute conversation here about this. It was like, I get
yeah.
it. Yeah, this makes sense now. Do you have any final words for anybody? Any like shout outs you want to make? You mentioned the Pixel Alliance. A lot of you guys running around now.
Oh yeah, we're actually just opening a new spot on Tuesday. So when this video goes live, so we'll have a third alliance. We'll extend it to, I don't remember the total member count per alliance, but yeah,
30.
Rorm's gonna be the head of the other one. And I already know we have some familiar faces that are looking to join. So if you're around on Discord and KM's or in our Discord and in Rorm's Discord, reach out to any of our members if you're interested. But yeah, besides that, you could find me streaming occasionally on the weekends. I went on a little hiatus where I was pretty busy, and wasn't able to. But I've been live, yeah, each weekend this month. So you could look to find me there on a Saturday or Sunday night.
You should
And
probably
then
tell them what the name of your channel is.
oh, that's true. It's Cougarrr on Twitch, but there are 2 O's and 3 R's. I apologize. Twitch did not like my 1 O in the name for whatever reason. It wouldn't let me do it. So that's where you can find me on Twitch. And then on Twitter, I also post deck lists kind of before you'd see them here or before Glazer would feature them. So that, I believe, is Cougarrr with 1 O, 3 R's, and then an underscore after. I'm so sorry.
Okay. So on
I'm so sorry.
Twitch, we can find you at Cougarrr. On
Yep.
Twitter, we can find you at Cougarrr. And that is my attempt at vocalizing an underscore. It's my best. It's my best.
I think it was a pretty good job.
I tried. All right. Thank you so much for doing this. And I really appreciate the time that you took out of your day to help, everyone watching this video. I'm sure they appreciate it as well. We'll have those links in the description so you don't have to try guessing at the spelling of them. They'll be down right under the video. Thank you so much. I've been KMBest. He's been Cougarrr. And I will see you in the next one.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, KM.